Hey, everybody. Welcome to the check-in, a show where a couple of friends hang out on their lunch break and talk about life under a new war. Danielle, since the last time we hung out, the
Oh
United States.
shit.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Wait, hold on. It's not dumb Jared.
What?
Stupid Jared. It's not a war. It's
Oh,
a special
a strategic
a
operation.
special strategic combat operation.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we're in. It's not a large regional war in the Middle East that could lead to a World War III situation. How you doing, my friend?
You know, look, I don't know. I literally said to you right before, hi friends and everybody checking in. Um, I'm operating in this place of extremes where either on one hand, there's a part of me that just doesn't care. Like at this point, there is no amount of outrage I think that is going to be the right amount for the absolute idiocracy,
Yep.
cruelty, dehumanization. Just, I mean, the idea that this war is being run by 80-year-old men that won't be around in 5 years, and the destruction and devastation that they're causing, we're all going to have to live in the rubble of for decades, generations to come, is extraordinary. And the
Yep.
fact that you have Pete Hegseth, who is a raging alcoholic, misogynist, white nationalist, pseudo white evangelical warrior in his head, cosplaying in this moment like a tough guy, sounding like an asshole. Um, it's like they're playing video games. And at the other end of it, 165 little girls were buried during Ramadan. Their parents had to bury them because they had the audacity to go to school that day. And Israel kills children. That's what that country does. They kill children. They've killed tens of thousands of Palestinian children, and now they're widening their range, right? And it's just so there's a part of me that's just like, look, I you can control what you can control, and evidently we're headed into World War III. I don't see how we avoid World War III, to be honest, at this point. And overnight I saw, and I don't even know because I didn't verify, so don't quote me. I think Donald Trump might have bombed Ecuador.
Oh
Like,
no, we're operating in Ecuador right now. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm just like, how am I doing? I don't know. I honestly, I have no idea. My mom said to me, Jared, she goes, I think we should leave, but I have no idea where to go that's safe from nuclear war. And I was just like, well, there is no place safe from nuclear war. It's either you're on the side of the bombs being dropped, or you're the ones dropping the bombs. But at some point, you have sleeper cells. You have, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like you have.
Yep.
So I don't know. How are you?
Well, I want to talk about the war in a second because the things that I'm seeing, like I'm glad we get to have this outlet, and I'll say more about that in a second. But before I get into the war aspect of it, I want to say something for the people who are watching this. It wasn't the reason that we did this show in the beginning, but what this show has begun had took over is that we're patterning like how two friends talk to one another through these types of crises. And I want to point something out. And I'm an old teacher, so I like to scaffold. I like to say, "Hey, look what we're learning." Everything that we have talked about since we started this show, we knew it was heading in a direction like this. We knew that these fascist motherfuckers, because we know history, were going to at some point or another have a war where they were going to kill a lot of people and try and take whatever they possibly could. And on top of that, we know that they're incompetent. We know that they're incurious. We know they're disgusting. They don't care what happens to human lives. So for us, what we're feeling right now, and Danielle, I know you probably have had this experience. Have you ever worked in a workplace where there's somebody in the workplace and you guys talk, and then like some boss or the company at some point or another does something that you both knew would be wrong, but it's also along the same lines as what you have seen, and you just kind of walk in the break room or you walk into another person's office and you're just like,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
you're so emotionally prepared for it that you're just like, fuck these motherfuckers. That's all you can say. Of course they're doing this. And of course they've got us to this point. And I think that feeling that you're talking about through those sort of feelings, but it's also like, I got up on Saturday and I saw this and I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked.
Right.
Right? Because we're actually, and this is the good part in this. Our nervous systems, they're alive and they're attuned. That's the good news in this. We know what this is. We also knew the moment it started that they didn't have a reason to do it outside of money,
Mhm.
bribes, working with Israel, and also just megalomaniacal bullshit. We know that. We know where these things are going. That's a good sign for us, isn't it? Because now we're like, oh, we see things as they are.
And maybe that's it. Maybe that
Right.
is it. Maybe that is the place that I've arrived, is just like, there is no veil, there is no veneer, there are no masks. It's like there is no 3D or 4D chess. Like, what we are seeing is what is. The
It's what
most grotesque, maniacal, uh cruel, stupid people. This is what happens when you give them control.
you give them control and they're going to run the fucking thing into the ground. And on top of it, Danielle, like for people, maybe you have just like tuned in, maybe this is your first episode of the check-in or whatever. Were you shocked when you heard that they were using AI to target targets?
No, because
No.
why use your brain? These
Why
are, I
would you?
mean, these are people that have never,
They've
they've
never.
never in their lives had
Never.
to challenge themselves to
Right.
think, right? They've never had to work at anything. This
And
is why, like, they're handed things, and they have no ambition, they have no strategy, they have no clarity, they have no depth,
no
right?
doubt. And look at what we've seen so far. And again, I'm just getting us all on the same page, right? Because most of us spend our lives being told that our concerns aren't real. We're imagining it, right? Society gaslights us, work gaslights us, all of it. Danielle, like when I woke up on Saturday and they're like, we're now going to show you the remarks of President Trump earlier this morning. You knew what they were going to be.
Yep.
You knew that he wasn't going to take it seriously. Matter of fact, in my mind, I was like, he's probably going to be wearing one of his dumb fucking hats. He doesn't take this seriously. Then you see a video later where he's talking about the war and he's like, these drapes over here. And it's like, of course he did that. Then Hegseth comes out and you're like, I know what this is going to be. And he's going to go out and he's going to say all this macho, sad, pathetic bullshit. We're we're aligned. That's the good news here. And the other good part of it, Danielle, like, feel what this feels like. They're failing. Like they're eating shit every single day because they thought they could just go in and be the United States of America and roll Iran and everything would be fine. Meanwhile, they're running out of interceptor missiles. It's coming out today that Iran tricked them and Israel by painting helicopters and jets on the ground and making us send out like 20, $30 million missiles and just losing them. The other day, for the first time in years, 3 F-15s went down. Do you know how much an F-15 cost, Danielle? A
Apparently,
hundred,
that was, yeah.
$150 million. Just gone in a couple of hours. So what is happening now is that these motherfuckers don't know what they're doing. Shit is spiraling out of control. By the way, when's the last time you saw a war that America was waging that had an approval rating of 20%? What is happening is that the shit that we have seen, and we've seen for 10 years and more, it's
Mhm.
becoming more apparent. There's something awful about this because of the tragedy and the pain and the suffering of it. But there's something incredibly hopeful, which is the veneer is gone. It's gone. There isn't dressing this up in star spangled banners and support the troops or any of that shit. Everybody knows what this is, and there's a feeling to it that this thing might very well become a tipping point, and that's something I think which is really exciting. Still tragedy, but it's exciting.
I remember 10 years ago when I had my first show, Woke AF, and Donald Trump was elected, and that's why I launched that show. And I remember saying to the audience at that time, 10 years ago, everything in America and the world is going to get way bloodier
Yep.
before it gets better. And I said, and I don't say that in a way to celebrate it, in a way to glorify it, in a way to uh, make it trivial, but it is the reality that as humans, we don't seem to learn. We seem to have to repeat, particularly in this region of the world, the same mistakes every 10, 15, 20 years and do the same things over again. And the thing that gets me, Jared, is that I think that for the first time in my, like, not the first time, but it's just like one of those moments where you think to yourself, who the fuck is the United States to go in and decide that another country needs to have a regime change? Who the fuck are we to go around nation by nation, region by region, knocking people off, creating these terrorist vacuums, creating the devastation, and then turning around and pointing to these countries and saying, oh, look at these savages, look at these people, look how they're living. Like I was saying over the weekend, I live in New York City. Everybody knows that. And I'm looking, as I'm moving around over the weekend, and I'm saying, bombing Tehran is like just dropping a bomb in Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah.
Like you're out, it's Saturday, you're living your life in Iran. It is, Ramadan, you're with family, you're with friends, you're living life. And what we've been indoctrinated into believing is that life only exists in the West. Everyone else, everywhere else, lives in some type of cave or hut, and the dehumanization that we've done, whether it be through movies, TV series. I talked about this on my shows. I said from Indiana Jones to Homeland, right? From Back to the Future to Tehran, right? It is this constant narrative and picture that has been painted of these places that, well, they're not like us, so we don't need to care about the lives that are lost. We don't need to care about the body parts that are all over the place. We don't need to care about the raining down of terror, right? And I'm looking at the skyline of New York City, and I'm saying this would be like waking up on Saturday morning and just, what is that sound? What is happening? As you're supposed to go and, connect with friends, go for a run, like live life. And so I need us to put ourselves in this space because it will be us soon.
Well,
It was us during 9/11, right? It was us, right? During Pearl Harbor, like it was us with the Oklahoma City bombing. It was, but I'm saying like folks are so disconnected from that reality because you've been indoctrinated into believing that these places, because they don't look like our cities, that life is not existing and happening there. And it absolutely is. And we don't care. Right? And so when you're listening to Pete Hegseth do his best cosplaying bravado G.I. Joe toxic masculine bullshit,
yep.
it's gonna rain down until we say it's done. Beating his chest, you're like, you just killed children. Like you are patting yourself on the back and doing this circle jerk of celebration around killing children. Like that's who you are, you animal. And there's nothing else that I can say but to call them that because they're Neanderthals.
Mhm.
And that's how they operate. And
And
I
they
just, it makes it honestly like it makes me sick and ill when I saw those little girls' coffins wrapped in white with the flowers on them in their pictures. And I'm thinking about just how many, how many in Palestine, how many in Gaza, how many?
and by the way, before I get into any of the analysis stuff, I run every day by an elementary school. And what you just brought up is one of the most important lessons that we have to learn, which is it's the equivalent of a missile hitting that elementary school. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. American kids going to school, minding their business, a missile hits them, and they're gone. That's it. The secret to all of this is that the American hubris, this idea, American exceptionalism, right? The manifest destiny. And look at all of these things, Danielle. What does it have in common with history? It's that we have told ourselves a story. Well, we're special, so we should take over the continent and carry out a genocide of indigenous people. Why do it? Because we're different, right? Oh, why would the Southern class have slavery? Because they're different. They deserve to have slaves doing those things. Why is it we go? I mean, this has always been my job and my responsibility. I know it doesn't make me popular at parties. This isn't the first regime change that we've attempted in our history. And the moment that we gained the power to do that, what did we do, Danielle? We did it everywhere that we possibly could. And most of the time it was hidden behind the scenes with coups and CIA plots and assassinations and you name it. Now it's just brazen. We don't even have an answer for it. We're just saying we don't want these people around. And it has made me think of something because the conversations I have with people, Danielle, have you noticed how many supposed liberals and how many never Trumpers are just like, oh, listen, I don't like Donald Trump, but this is a real opportunity to reorder the Middle East. And all of these assholes, they're showing their asses. They didn't know. I will never forget for the rest of my life. It was on Monday. Thomas Friedman posted an article on the New York Times in the morning that was like, here's how I'm thinking about Iran, a quote unquote intellectual. That was before like all of this information came out that the United States military is eating shit. Right. And he had to go on CNN that night and be like, well, I don't really I'm really concerned about what explanations they're giving right now. It's like, you asshole. Everyone knew what this was going to be, except for all of you warmongers. All of you fucking warhawks, you're Tom Nichols, all these assholes who just constantly, the only thing that gets them hard, Danielle, is when innocent people are dying. Innocent brown people are dying. Okay? It makes me think of something. The American problem is this, and it makes me think about a 12-step program. The first step in a 12-step program, Danielle, is we looked at our lives and realized they had become unmanageable. The United States of America thought they knew better than everybody in the world. And they created a war footing state in which all of our economy and all of our politics was based around committing wars around the world and overthrowing leaders and not paying attention. We didn't care if somebody got elected. If we didn't like them, we would kill them. If we didn't like them, we'd kidnap them. That's not the first time, everybody. This is the American problem. It's to the point. We talk about drugs all the time and addictions. It's to the point where all of a sudden you look around with sober eyes and you're like, these people are fucked up and this doesn't work anymore. And something has to change. And it's unfortunate that it's going to be as deadly as it's going to be. A lot of people have already died.
What do you mean? I just want, like, I have to say this, Jared, because I want to ask you.
Yeah.
The other day, because you're a reformed evangelical, right?
Yeah.
And the other day, Marjorie Taylor Greene said, what do we do with a man that says that he doesn't believe that he's going to heaven? That he literally is operating from a place that he has nothing to lose. When they see those dead children, they feel nothing because they are waging this, some of them in Trump's circle are waging a holy war where they believe that sacrifices must be made. And I'm just like, where do we go from there? If that's your grounding place, they don't have to give excuses. They don't have to give reasons as to why this is unconstitutional or illegal. They're being called by a higher power. So what does it do? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. No, and I do want to say, just to give it a little bit of background, the difference, there's a reason why we have church and state, Danielle. The divide between church and state. And people might not know this. The founding fathers, they were deist or atheist. They did not want religion in the government because what was going on at that time in Europe, the schism between Catholicism and Protestantism was leading to massacres everywhere. So they wanted a rational government where people looked at information and made decision from that information. They didn't want revelation. Because guess what? The moment that evangelicals were like, you can talk to God, all you have to say is God told me to do it. And if you say God told me to do it, whatever you want to do, this is the reason why, by the way, that they want to create a theocratic state. It's not because they believe in God, it's because it gives them the excuse. You can do whatever you want because God told me to do it. I think what's happening with Trump, weirdly enough, is I don't, have you ever known maybe a family member or somebody who is getting older and they have moments of strange clarity, or they're kind of thinking about mortality and they're thinking about like their life, and you can kind of tell that they regret things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even the most high out of their mind delusional people have moments of clarity. He's having clarity. He's having clarity that his life, he has been a fucking criminal, pedophile, abuser, fascist, all these things. And to be honest with you, that's one of the things that frightens me the most in all of this, because MAGA has always been a death cult. Always.
Yeah.
All of the different components, Nazis and fascists, it's a death cult, right? It's wanting to kill people and also themselves. Evangelicals, death cult. They want the end of the world. That it
Right.
you are raised your entire life being told how wonderful it's going to be when the world ends. And then you have and the other element, no one's talking about this, you have the boomer generation that is having to think about the fact that their lives are about over.
Mm-hmm.
And you put all those things together, that's a fucking mess. Particularly a guy like Trump, who sort of embodies all those different things. It's the reason not only that he shouldn't have been elected, it's the reason why he shouldn't be in power. Period.
Because I've been thinking about it, and you and I have these conversations that expand, I should say, outside of just the political analysis, looking at the spiritual aspect, looking at the trauma aspect, looking at all of these different perspectives. And I'm thinking to myself, you have these men who are godless men. And I'm not a religious person, right? I consider myself spiritual. So, and I know that a lot of atheists watch my show because they tell me all the time. But like, you have these men, these godless men who are ordered by no morality, by no value. For Donald Trump, his guiding force, greed, consumption, materialism, fame.
Yep.
For the people that encircle him, their their compass, not moral compass, but their compass is rapture, is Armageddon.
Yep.
And whatever they can do to swiftly usher the hand of God. Right? And so they to be under the thumb, under the boot of people who have no care in the world about the repercussions of what they're doing, whether it be legally or spiritually, they do not care. Because again, they're saying, we're warriors for God. We're ushering in the end. So if Israel decides to drop a nuke, then it's like, wonderful. We'll just create greater Israel, right? That's the goal here. Greater Israel, to move beyond the borders and expand outward for their supremacist goals. For Donald Trump, it's consumption. How much can we take? How much can we extract? And I'm just like, when you are at the end of your life, should that even matter? It's not like you care about your legacy. It's not like you care about your kids or your family. So I don't know how we operate in a world with being led by godless, moralist, valueless monsters.
It's morphing. At the end of his life, this is morphing. Like, he's so unpopular and he's failed so badly that what does he want? What does Donald Trump actually want? I mean, he doesn't know, but he wants to go in a room and everybody be like, "Oh, Mr. President, you're the greatest president of all time. Can we take a picture with you?" Matter of fact, he was doing that right before he started a war. And then what did he do immediately after? He went right back to it. Right? This is that's the whole thing. And I think there's something to this, Danielle, because what you just laid out is exactly true and right. And I want to give a little piece of history for people. Adolf Hitler. Are you familiar with like the amount of times that the German military tried to murder him? Like it,
No, but I know that they did, but I
they
don't know
tried
how many times.
multiple times. And the reason is because he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And by the way, thank God he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. One of the reasons why they were not able to win that conflict, and we're not living in a much different world right now, is because Hitler did not know what he was doing with war. Right. And there's a certain point where, like, for all of the speeches and all of the pageantry and all of the propaganda, at some point, the military heads, they looked at him and they were like, this motherfucker is crazy. Right? Like they saw it. And I'm sure other people have had that feeling. Maybe you've known someone in your life that you've loved and you've been like, oh, this person's great. And then there's a moment you looked in their eyes and you're like, holy shit, this person's out of their mind. Right. And all of a sudden, I think everything you just laid out and everything that's happening right now is where this is heading. We all look at him. We know he's fucking nuts. The spell is gone for a lot of the MAGA people right now because they didn't want to have this. They actually were anti-war, right? And then, Danielle, there's no way around this where, how do you end this war? We could just say, well, we're done and we're out. Okay, that's one option, but that's not going to work. Another option is, oh, well, are you going to drop nuclear bombs and kill God knows how many people? Maybe one of the biggest atrocities in history? That's a problem. Are you going to put boots on the ground in Iran? And, we talk all the time about, like, why aren't people, like, protesting and what's it going to take? Putting their lives in danger? Because if you put boots in the ground in Iran, you're never going to stop putting boots on the ground in Iran. It's going to go and go and go and go. On that note, one of the smartest things that the establishment ever did in the 1970s was stopping the draft. The reason why we had all of the protests and all of the counter revolutions in that era was because people are like, you're going to send me to die? I'm going to fight you. I don't see any way that black hole inside of Trump and all of these mistakes and all of these compounding mistakes, I don't see any way that it doesn't get somewhere where there is a major upheaval. I don't see it at this point. They're not going to strategize their way out of this. They
No.
can't. The military doesn't want to do this. I don't know if you've seen, every day there's new leaks from the military
Yep.
that are
And the
like,
military, when do we ever hear leaks from the military?
when you do hear leaks from the military, like
When they're wildly unhappy?
when they're wildly unhappy. With the Iraq war and Afghanistan, when did we hear it? Years into it, when it wasn't working.
Not
So they're
days.
not days. Not day. What is today? It's day 4, 5, day 5, day 5, and the military is telling everyone who will listen, we told them not to do this. It's not working. The shit, it's falling apart. There is no way that this ends well. None. And we just have to hope that it goes in the direction of, wow, the veil is lifted and people are like, we're done. We're done with this. It's not going to go on. That's the best case scenario here.
I am so, you were talking about the draft and the end of the draft. And I think that they may bring it back.
Me too.
We don't
Me too.
have enough people willingly wanting to go into the military,
Right?
particularly at this moment that they were instituting their great purge. Get all the people of color out, get the women out, get the queer people out. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, I have young family members, right? And this is terrifying to me. The probability that they're like, I mean, just the way, Jared, that they've talked about the people that have been killed thus far. Oh, they're heroes. Oh, we thank their families. You thank their families for their blood sacrifice, for your stupidity?
Can I say something very quickly on that note? Danielle, who's the major base of MAGA?
White and evangelical Christians.
White evangelical Christians and young men.
Yeah. I guess you'll
They
send all the incels?
the thing that they voted for, the thing that they voted for would be the thing that would destroy them. It's the self emulate
Yeah.
immolation drive. That's what it is. That's what this is. It was the same way with the Nazis. It was the same way with the fascists. They create a cult of power and personality, and it inevitably destroys them. That's the whole point of all of this. Is that like it's all of the compounding mistakes that then destroy themselves. And if you're outside of it and you're watching it, you can predict it.
Yeah.
That's the awful thing about it.
I look at all of this. We're counting, and it's almost as if I feel like we're back in the beginning of COVID, where we were counting days, where we're like, in 2 weeks,
Right.
everything will be back to normal, right?
And the deaths, even the deaths.
Yeah,
Yep.
it won't be as bad. We said that at the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, right? Like a few weeks, we're now what, 3 years in, right?
Right.
Gaza, Israel, we're what, 3 years in? I think that Donald Trump is literally waging war everywhere. At home, with ICE, which I don't want anybody to forget about. By the way, they didn't leave Minnesota. They set up camp there. They're still going door to door and pulling out undocumented and American citizens alike. They're still waging war with ICE. I don't want folks to forget about that as we're talking about what is going on. So you're spreading thin there. You don't have enough missiles or boots on the ground to go over here. You wanted to take over this region for the oil as the stock market is tumbling. Venezuela's oil is not ready for production. By the way, there's a bunch of guerrilla warfare going on the ground there. You're creating terrorist vacuums over here in the Middle East, and then you're dropping bombs in Nigeria and Ecuador and this place and that place. And it's like, oh, somebody said Donald Trump's on a roll to hell, on a roll, right? Like, is there a quota number that we're trying to hit of bodies? Because I think we've surpassed it. And so you're funneling money to Israel, funneling money into DHS, you're funneling money over here. It's as if they think that none of this is going to run out,
Yep.
that it's all infinite.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, Jared, the other thing, how many wars do we fight over resources? Oil, minerals that again are not infinite. We're actually running out of it. And in the meantime, the globe is collapsing in on itself. And so like, no one thinks to themselves, you know what? Maybe we should stop investing in oil and coal. And, maybe we should really start thinking about renewables so that A, we can stop fighting these unnecessary wars and losing people's lives. And B, also, it's like you're assuming that the world is never going to tap out. Like you're going to go back to the refinery one more time and you're going to turn it on and ain't nothing coming out. Right? So it's just like the people that are in charge, these leaders that we put in place, don't know their ass from their elbow.
No.
And I think I realized that like 20 years ago when I was working on Capitol Hill, and I had this beautiful, naive belief that these people were like the all-knowing Oz. And I just wanted to go to Capitol Hill and learn from them. And then you sit in these committee hearings and you're just like, you're an idiot.
By the way, one of the most liberating feelings that I ever had. So, like, the entire reason that you and I are having this conversation is because I went viral in 2016, right? Like, reporting from Trump rallies. And then I was like, holy shit, like, people want to know what I have to think. I should probably, like, educate myself, right? And I was like, I need to learn everything immediately. And I would go into meetings, Danielle. I go into strategy meetings. I go into all these rooms and you sit across the table, and I'm sure you've had this feeling. There's somebody across the table from you who has an incredible amount of money, who has an incredible amount of power and influence. And within 5 minutes of having a conversation with them, you're like, this motherfucker's
It's
stupid.
stupid.
This
Stupid.
mother.
Barack Obama said it the other day. He's like, you go into these rooms And you feel you at first you feel intimidated. He's
Yeah.
like, and then they start talking.
And you're like, oh my God, the secret is, and this is why none of this is like really surprising to me. You suddenly realize, oh, everything's rigged. And where we have gotten is to the point where the system was so rigged for the most incompetent,
Mm.
lazy,
Mhm.
incurious people that they, and by the way, the reason they hate DEI is because they are the DEI.
Yep.
Because everything has been rigged so that they have jobs, so that they have all the wealth and all the power. There's a reason why we don't do anything new, Danielle. It's because these people are fucking stupid. You just brought up, by the way, we're in another situation that involves oil. We shouldn't be relying on oil anymore.
Nope.
If every project that was an oil alternative hadn't been destroyed, we wouldn't have that problem. And eventually, guess what? Going back to the self-destruction, the people who made decisions, for people who don't know this, by the way, the oil companies and energy companies, they knew climate change was real in the 1950s. They got in rooms and they had a meeting and they were like, hey, our reports show that there is this climate change thing that's happening. It's going to be a problem. And what did they say in those meetings, Danielle? They said, we'll deal with it later. For right now, we're going to pay a bunch of money to a bunch of our people to say it's not real. And then it just compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds. And they never have the conversation, which is, what are we going to do about that problem? And then what happens next when the problem rears its head? It's like, oh, we'll put money here and we'll take care of this, right? And we'll take care of this over here. And eventually what happens, it gets out of control. Everything now is out of control in a way that is one compounded problem after another. And the people who created this mess, Danielle, they're still in charge of the fucking mess.
Yeah.
They're still in charge. The people, and if people want to I've been thinking about this all day. The Democrats are going to vote for a supplemental funding bill. They're going to vote for it. The Democrats who are going to do that are the same ones who voted for the Iraq War.
Yep.
The same fucking ones. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. It's going to get worse. And we are at the consequence part of what has been a disastrous cycle that of modern American history.
You
Period.
know, it's you ever on Instagram and there were like travel influencer bloggers that are going to Japan and they're going to like these different European countries and they're like, "Oh my god, such and such a country is living in the future." Right? Like such and such a country is, blah blah. And it's like, "No, that's actually what it looks like when you're investing billions of dollars into infrastructure, billions of dollars into the citizens of that country as opposed to having a multi-trillion-dollar war machine."
And we've got sinkholes opening up on streets.
Right, and we can't pick up snow, right? Like, we can't do the
Right.
basics, but you've been told that America is the best and that's why everyone comes here. But if you have a passport and you have had the privilege to travel to other places, you're like, America is one of the most archaic, backwards places possible, right? Like, we're still doing things the way that we developed them during the Industrial Revolution. And
Yep.
it's like, and then it just stopped.
Right.
The growing, the learning, the thinking, it just stopped. And it said, let's just keep recreating the wheel over and over again and calling that progress. It isn't. Because when you go around and you just look at other countries' fucking airports, you look at the amount of bullet trains that zip all over Europe, that zip all over Asia, and we can't, and Amtrak gets derailed when there's hail. Like, how do we say to ourselves, oh yeah, But we got the biggest military. They got smart meta glasses on now so that they can scan your face so they know who they're shooting. And like that's where the resources, that's where the technological advancement went into. And we tell ourselves, well, it's for our protection. Protection from what? A future that is like livable, renewable, walkable, breathable. Like it's insane. And it's like, again, we just keep reliving their grandfather and great grandfather's wars and like pursuit of stuff and things. And no rational thinking has ever entered has ever entered. And when it does, we call those people radical. We call them communists. We call them unpatriotic. We tear them down so that we can remain the same. And when you bring up the Democrats, I'm like, we don't have a two-party system. America is run by corporatists, right? Like that's it. America is run by corporatists, special interest groups. That's it. We don't have a two-party system. One is brazen in their cruelty and their evil, and the other one puts on a smile for you.
Well, and speaking of veils coming off, Danielle, we started an illegal war and are committing war crimes against another country that did not attack us. What are the Democrats saying? You should have asked us first. Why? They would have voted for it. They were so desperate to put the stamp on it because what do they care about? We talk about this all the time. The abuser and the enabler, right? We are supposed to be able to vote for it. We would have given you your war. We would have given you all the money that you wanted in the world. But the difference is that the fascist says, I don't need permission. I don't need all of us to work on this thing together. And they are going to line up to vote for a supplemental thing. And Danielle, what are they going to tell us? We're doing this to keep the troops safe. That's what they'll say. And by the way, the military, what you just brought up is exactly right. The reason that we don't, you want to talk about America being great, our education system is in the fucking gutter. Like we don't take care of our kids. We don't have health care. We don't have jobs. We can't afford houses. The one thing that we have is the military. It's been the organ through which our money has been funneled. That's why they have all of this. In fact, they have so much money that our law enforcement is now its own military that's being used against us. That's how that works. Well, guess what? The one thing that we were promised is, hey, I know America sucks shit right now, but at least we have the best military in the history of the world. What's happening? What's happening? It's not working. It's not even the one thing that we're supposed to have. It's not working. So at some point you have to say, why did all of our money go to this? And on top of it, are you just going to throw more money at it? If you really want to keep troops safe, why don't you starve the war and bring them home? That's how you keep them safe. And then all of a sudden, it's not just like other kids. By the way, who makes up the military? Poor kids.
Yeah.
Poor kids. Poor kids and kids of color. That's who makes up the military because they've created an underclass that's the only way that they can do anything, right? What happens when it's not just poor kids and kids of color who are going off to die? It's not the same deal anymore, is it? It's not the same deal anymore when all of a sudden, the fact that we haven't had some sort of like a cell operating in the United States of America with Kash Patel busy going to watch his dumb shit girlfriend perform at a rodeo somewhere, like, that's incredible. We're all on borrowed time in that regard.
Yeah.
This shit is not going to get better because it can't get better. It's only going to get worse until something changes. And that pivot point, I really feel like that's where we're heading.
I think that we are almost there.
I do too.
The atomic clock.
Yep.
5 seconds to midnight, 12. Like, I think that we are a second to midnight at this point, right? Like, the time that their grandfathers and fathers thought that they had, kicking the can down the road since the 1950s, to your point. We're now in 2026. We're now living inside of the devastations of climate change. Superstorms every season multiple times over that cost billions of dollars in damage, whether it be going into a summer where we won't see rain, where we will see fires that just ravage the country, that are now spreading outside of California and Oregon and Washington, and they're in New York and they're in New Hampshire and they're all over the place because it's so dry. And these extreme seasons we're living inside of. And every different season costing more money and people's lives. But we don't have money for FEMA because we got to put all that money into the Pentagon. We don't have money for cleanup, right? We got to put all that money in ICE. And so what do you get at the end of the day? What do you get when you've starved your country? You've starved its infrastructure. You've starved its education. You've starved its healthcare, all to have this muscle-bound imperialist machine, because that's what it is.
Yep.
We think that colonization ended. No, it didn't. It just manifested into something else by a new name. But why do we have the strongest military in the world? Because it is an imperialist muscle machine. That's what it is. To go around and stomp and put flags and move people around like they are pawns on a chessboard. And if you don't like what they're doing, you flip the whole fucking board over and then you start over again.
You brought up the 1950s, and I'm glad you did. Why are we in this situation in Iran? I'll tell you, cable news doesn't talk about it. Why Iran hates us and why they have a theocratic regime. They don't talk about how we overthrew that country in the 1950s and installed a fucking dictator. And guess what? We don't talk about this either. The reason that we don't have a leader in mind is because we have a leader in mind. It's this fucking kid who's running around America giving speeches. And what you just brought up is very, very important about colonialism. Everyone tells this story, Danielle. It's a total fairy tale about why we went to war with the Nazis. We didn't go to war with the Nazis because the Holocaust. We didn't go to war with the Nazis because of concentration camps. We went to war with the Nazis because they wanted to wedge in on the colonial overtaking of brown people. And we said, hey, fuck you, that's our job. And what did we do? We brought in all of the Nazis that we possibly could to create the modern American military. And what did we do? We waved the flag and we said, hey, we're doing this for everybody's best interest. And then what did we do? We went into other countries and took over their shit. Why? Because we said, hey, we can do it better than you, and we can do it with a veneer that seems happy and smiling and ethical. And now there's no need to even do that anymore. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same impulse. It's the exact same rotten anti-human belief and thought and all of it. What everyone wants to think fascism was this aberration in Western Europe in the 20th century. No, it is a human problem.
Yeah.
It is an existential problem. And going back to what we've been talking about, what does money buy you? It buys you the ability to not have to look in the mirror and rethink things. And so what is the thing? We're going to blow all of that money, and we're going to keep telling ourselves that we're the good guys until there's no money left and there's no ability to avoid looking in the mirror. And then we're going to be like, man, we really are going to have to do something different. Period.
I mean, here's the thing. If peace were profitable, it would have happened. If keeping people well, right, and healthy was profitable, we would invest in doing so.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, there's a market for death and destruction.
Absolutely.
There is a market for death and destruction. We like to tell ourselves the fairy tales about why we go in and invade these places and create these coups and do these things, that it's in the name of democracy. If they had cared about the Jewish people being slaughtered during the Holocaust, do you think that it would have taken 6 million of them to be slaughtered in order to intervene? Do you think that,
as the Holocaust was being set up, the New York Times was like, yeah, Hitler has an anti-Semitism problem, but he's a really good corporate leader.
And he loves gardens and long walks.
Mm.
So, I think that we need to collectively rub the cold, the sleep out of our eyes and recognize who America has always been. You don't get to stage 4 of the cancer that is us and that is Donald Trump without ignoring all of the signs. You don't get to the stage 4 without getting into a place where you are embracing the greed, where you are looking away and you're taking in the fairy tale because it makes you feel better. Donald Trump is a collective manifestation of what we have ignored for decades upon decades upon decades and given license to, right? Like, you go back, people are saying like, well, he shouldn't have tried to steal the election. I'm like, do you know when the first election was stolen? I'm just talking about the first one that I know about, the year 2000,
Yep.
26 years ago.
Yep.
Maybe if we had done things differently then and Bush didn't become president, we would be in an entirely different universe.
Danielle, something you're saying, I'm so glad you're saying it like this. How did Donald Trump win the Republican Party over? There was one thing that he did. There's one thing that he did. It wasn't that the insults wouldn't have worked in the very beginning, right? He had to do one thing, and it was something that the Republican Party needed, which was they needed a candidate to stand on stage and say the Iraq War was a mistake. They needed to unbuckle themselves from George W. Bush and the Iraq War. What did he say? He said the Iraq War was a stupid decision made by stupid people. And what happens if you don't recognize the past and you don't learn from it?
You
You
repeat
repeat
it.
it. He knew it was wrong. He knew it was wrong. And he went ahead and did it himself. And not just did it, to go off your point, he made a bigger, worse decision. I don't know how else to say it. It's just the proof is there. It just that history cycles around constantly unless you learn from it. And they refuse to learn.
And honestly, Jared, I think that my fear in this moment, one is that I don't think that you and I will live to see the reconstruction of America. Two, because I think much in the same way, and will continue to make the comparisons to COVID, much in the same way that we didn't want to learn anything from that period of time, that we just wanted to rush back to normal. We just wanted to feel normal again. I want to be able to not think about the presidency. I want to be able to just live my life and not think about what's happening around the world. That even when Donald Trump is gone, there will be this rush to normal that will just sweep everything that happened under the rug. There'll be no accountability, no transparency. The rush to normal, the American people just want things the way that they were. And it'll be rinse and repeat.
I think there's a couple of things because I know that's the American tendency. I think the way that I feel about it is this. I'm healing and recovering from my trauma. I'm 44 years old. And I don't know how long my life is going to be. Um, we have to have faith that something like the idea of planting the tree, you might not see it grow to its full thing. But man, there are still days where life feels so much better. You know what I mean? Like when you actually start choosing yourself and you actually start healing, there are days where you're like, oh, life can be like this. And then of course you fall on your ass. Like you do dumb shit. You hurt yourself, you make mistakes or whatever. I think that what we're going to see is something truly miraculous. Whether or not we see the full fruit of it is a question. I don't think we're going to wake up in a utopia. Like, but I do think there are going to be days where it's like, oh, this is what we were looking for. This is what we deserved, and this is what we needed. And we're going to look back at this time period. We're going to be like, man, that really fucking sucked. But I'm glad we're through it. I think that's how we'll feel.
As I say with inshallah, God willing, because honestly, the way that things are set up right now, bombs exploding everywhere, the loss of life, the lack of care for the loss of life, I mean, it's a travesty that did that. And what kills me is it doesn't have to be this way. It so clearly doesn't have to be this way. And this is a choice.
It's a choice. Yeah. You choose to be this destructive. And we have to choose not to. My friend, I was looking forward to this since Saturday. But it started on Saturday.
And it's Wednesday.
It feels like it's been going on for months. I can't believe saying that out loud. It started on Saturday. I've been looking forward to this conversation since then. It didn't disappoint. My friend, so good talking to you.
You too.
Everybody, thank you so
Be
much.
well.
We'll be back next week. Be safe.